Welcome to Tech Bytes, my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel and feel most welcome, and if are a returning subscriber, thanks for the continued support. We are going to take a deeper analysis of the Croatia national team. The 2018 World Cup runners-up, Croatia, will be looking for a repeat later this year as they aim to claw their way out of Group F and onto the podium once more. It's difficult to keep expectations in check considering their success in Russia, followed up with the convincing Nations League campaign and World Cup qualifiers. But Vetreni will have to do exactly that. This is a fresh team, a team that's been blessed with a healthy mixture of experience and youth. But also a team that's still very much a dark horse in the tournament despite their silver medal status from 2018. Zlatko Dalic is, however, growing into the role of manager, and Croatia seems to be rising in form just in time for the main event. Their qualifying run was far from easy, but topping the group that had the likes of Russia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Cyprus, and Malta with 23/30 points was an excellent first sign of even better things to come. The Nations League, however, would prove a far more formidable test. But Vetreni would still persevere. Their clashes with France, Denmark, and Austria were entertaining and strategic, and ultimately, they would come out on top more often than not, tallying 13/18 points to finish the group. This means we'll see them again next June in the Nations League finals alongside Spain, Italy and the Netherlands. With Real Madrid's Luka Modric leading the line with Inter's Marcelo Brozovic and Chelsea's Mateo Kovacic, Croatia have the ingredients for another sensational run deep into the grandest football stages of them all. This tactical analysis will go over their tactics, using data and analysis to preview Dalic's squad. Finally, at the end of the scout report, we'll give you our prediction for their World Cup run. Before we move on to Croatia's tactics for the World Cup, let's first do a quick analysis of their squad depth. The first graph you can see here represents their squad age profile. Players younger than 24 are considered youth players, while everyone from 24 to 29 would be classified as being in their prime years. Players above the age of 29 are entering their experienced years. We can see that Dalic is actually working with a healthy mix of all three types of players, but the majority of them are indeed in their tournament. Having players who are physically and mentally at their best may prove to be an invaluable asset for Croatia. At 37 years of age, Modric will be the captain of the ship one last time before hanging up his boots. When it comes to other, older players we're likely to see more of. Both Ante Budimir and Ivan Perisic have proved their worth, cementing Dalic's trust in them. While other experienced players like Domagoj Vida and Dejan Lovren are still more than capable of competing, it is likely they will have smaller roles to play in Qatar. This is where the youth comes into play. Josko Gvardiol and Josip Sutalo are Croatia's breakthrough talents who are already showing impressive first-team levels of quality. As we've already mentioned, however, most of the players are in their prime years, which is a good sign for Vetreni. As for the starting lineup itself, this is where it gets tricky for both us to predict and Dalic to choose. The goalkeeper position is arguably one of the weakest links of this otherwise impressive squad. Both Dominik Livakovic and Ivica Ivuzic are likely to find themselves between the sticks and, truthfully, both offer similar levels of quality, on and off the ball. At this point, however, we see Livakovic as more likely to be given the nod due to his superior experience. When it comes to the backline, the youth tandem of Gvardiol and Sutalo seems the way to go given Croatia's possession-based style of play. Both defenders are strong on the ball and will aid the team's build-up phase greatly. When it comes to the full-backs, Borna Sosa is Croatia's high-flying option whose impact out wide means he's more likely to start ahead of his more defensive namesake, Borna Barisic. Josip Juranovic offers a similarly more offensive output than his rival, Josip Stanisic, and could, in our eyes, get the nod for that same reason. The midfield is Croatia's bread and butter. We don't need to spend too long on the incredible trident of Brozovic, Modric and Kovacic, but one potential worry for Dalic heading into the tournament is his pivot's fitness. Brozovic's injury puts the whole system in jeopardy, and while he may still recover in time for the event, it remains to be seen how Dalic decides to tackle his absence, should it come to that. There are a couple of options available, with Kristijan Djakic probably being the likeliest to fill Inter's midfielder position is definitely among Croatia's weak links as the quality plummets with Brozovic out of the picture. All of Djakic, Nikola Moro and Josip Misic have their strengths and could do the job decently well, but none are as good as the It's not uncommon for Modric to drop deep and then deploy either a line-breaking pass into space or simply a lofted ball over the top, both of which complement the runners Croatia have in their arsenal. The example here is a perfect demonstration of such a scenario. Interestingly, it's also a sequence that ultimately ends in a goal for Dalic's squad. Leaving a player of Modric's caliber with ample time and space on the ball is something not even the best of teams will be able to afford, come to the World Cup in Qatar. The final thing we need to address when it comes to Croatia's attacking tactics is their ability to create threats through their quality in tight spaces. Even though the data doesn't always reflect that, Vetreni is extremely technical, albeit mostly due to their midfield. The directness of their approach aside, Croatia can and will dismantle teams through smart and quick interplay down the middle before an inevitable ejection of the wingers. Dalic may not be a master tactician, but he needn't be when he's got such incredible talent at his disposal. The following example shows us that perfectly. Most of Croatia's attacking sequences do end up in delivery from out wide, but the interplay also often originates down the middle where they can out-tech teams to a ridiculous extent. A lot of it is due to their immense quality on an individual level, but they are also quite disciplined and well-structured. In attack, Croatia is forced to drop deep and then deploy either a line-breaking pass into space or simply a lofted ball over the top, both of which complement the runners Croatia have in their arsenal. The example here is a perfect demonstration of such a scenario. Interestingly, it's also a sequence that ultimately ends in a goal for Dalic's squad. Leaving a player of Modric's caliber with ample time and space on the ball is something not even the best teams will be able to afford, in the World Cup in Qatar. The final thing we need to address when it comes to Croatia's attacking tactics is their ability to create threats through their quality in tight spaces. Even though the data doesn't always reflect that, Vetreni is extremely technical, albeit mostly due to their midfield. The directness of their approach aside, Croatia can and will dismantle teams through smart and quick interplay down the middle before an inevitable ejection of the wingers. Dalic may not be a master tactician, but he needn't be when he's got such incredible talent at his disposal. The following example shows us that perfectly. Most of Croatia's attacking sequences do end up in delivery from out wide, but the interplay also often originates down the middle where they can out-tech teams to a ridiculous extent. A lot of it is due to their immense quality on an individual level, but they are also quite disciplined and well-structured. In attack, Croatia is a force to be reckoned with. Despite their high success in final third recoveries, Croatia is not a high-pressing side. Yes, they can and will generate chances by defending high, but are more comfortable defending in a slightly deeper mid to low block. The high PPDA passes allowed per defensive action percentile ranking, in this case, means they will generally allow the opposition ample time on the ball, rather than congesting the deeper areas and flooding the other team's half with players. As mentioned earlier, Dalic's troops will sit back in a deep and compact block, often assuming a 4-5-1 quarter -1 4-1 or a 4-4-2 shape, depending on whether they're more aggressive or coverage off the ball while also congesting the danger zones on the pitch. Leaving the striker up front is also a way for Croatia to quickly transition from defense to attack, but more on that later in this tactical analysis. The deep block varies from a 4-5-1, 4-1-4-1 to a 4-4-2, and the difference is usually in the way the midfielders are deployed. In the first scenario, the wingers will drop deeper and the midfielders will be deployed roughly at the same height. However, this often morphs into a 4-1-4-1 if the pivot is dragged deeper through marking. If Croatia decide to push up and disrupt the build-up without aggressively pressing, they will usually instruct one of the midfielders to position himself next to the striker, creating a makeshift 4-4-2 structure. This can then further evolve into a 4-3-3 shape when trying to recover the ball high. In terms of pressing, Dalic generally goes for a heavy man-marking system, sometimes matching the opposition player for player. We can actually see a very similar scenario. This man-marking approach does come with its pros and cons, of course. When executed well, it yields great results in terms of ball recovery, as we'll soon see. However, it's also highly susceptible to manipulation, and the very best teams will know how to use it against the Croats. But given their great recovery numbers despite not being an overly aggressive pressing side, we can conclude they are calculated and well drilled in what they do. The final image we'll analyze in their defensive tactics is the recoveries they made in their last 4 games in the Nations League. With the exception of the clash against France, bottom left image, we see Croatia were most aggressive in the middle third of the pitch, and that's where the majority of their recoveries come from. Very rarely do they actually go all the way to the final third or even the opposition's box, but as already explained, when they do, they're often just like in almost any phase of the game, midfielders are key to Croatia's transition tactics. Both Modric and Kovacic are excellent carriers of the ball while also possessing a great passing repertoire, of course, the former player much more so than the latter. The same can be said for Brozovic, who, despite a more conservative pivot role, is a great first and second phase distributor with an impressive engine. It stands to reason then that Croatia breaks quickly and directly through their midfielders whenever the chance arises. It's not uncommon to see Croatia start their transitions by winning the ball in the middle third of the pitch, where they are undeniably most aggressive, and then having either Modric or Kovacic carry it upfield before ejecting runners into space out wide. You can see one such sequence here as well, with Modric unsurprisingly taking the lead role. Having wingers such as Perisic to aim for, Croatia can always pose a threat in transitions. Another option in attacking transitions presents itself in the form of their center forward. Whether they deploy someone like Budimir in a traditional striker mold or someone like Kramaric or Petkovic in the freer, modern outlook, the link-up with the player up top is key. We can expect layoffs regardless of the type of number 9 Dalic picks for his squad, and this once again goes hand in hand with the runners they will get from deep. Moving on to defensive transition tactics, it all comes from coordinated gegenpressing in the middle third and providing the team with a safety net should that fail. Croatia will often hunt for the ball relentlessly in the first couple of seconds of losing possession, so it's common to see them swarm the area, pushing up with numbers. Of course, should the opposition resist their efforts, they'll quickly revert to their deep block. If, however, the other team manages to break into a counterattack themselves, Croatia are hard-working in tracking back, which may make or break their defensive efforts the deeper they progress in the tournament. It's not uncommon for Modric to drop deep and then deploy either a line-breaking pass into space or simply a lofted ball over the top, both of which complement the runners Croatia have in their arsenal. The example here is a perfect demonstration of such a scenario. Interestingly, it's also a sequence that ultimately ends in a goal for Dalic's squad. Leaving a player of Modric's caliber with ample time and space on the ball is something not even the best of teams will be able to afford, come to the World Cup in Qatar. The final thing we need to address when it comes to Croatia's attacking tactics is their ability to create threats through their quality in tight spaces. Even though the data doesn't always reflect that, Vitreni is extremely technical, albeit mostly due to their midfield. The directness of their approach aside, Croatia can and will dismantle teams through smart and quick interplay down the middle before an inevitable ejection of the wingers. Dalic may not be a master tactician, but he needn't be when he's got such incredible talent at his disposal. The following example shows us that perfectly.